Hello and welcome back to day 35 of How to Fix the World in 80 Days, and today's subject is the internet. Now there have been a lot of great inventions over time, but in my lifespan, probably the one that's had the biggest impact on the most amount of people has been the internet. But did you know that only 54% of the world has regular access to internet? So here's my moral question. Should the internet be a human right? Well, if you don't already know how you feel, maybe you can think about it this way. Imagine you had to go to work and do your job without the internet. Or you're in school and you had to study for all your exams without the internet. Or you had to use social media, or find directions, or really any of your day-to-day tasks that require the internet. Imagine you didn't have it. Now, try to picture what it would be like if you were competing against someone who does have internet access and you do not. You wouldn't stand a chance. Unfortunately, that's a reality for 46% of the world, most of whom are obviously coming from developing countries. Now, if we really want these people to rise out of poverty, of course they need food, of course they need clothes, shelter, etc., but I don't see how they're supposed to do this without internet access. Look past all the games, look past all the Instagram posts, all the other fancy things the internet does, but what it really is a tool for information. If we can get internet access on the space station, I don't see why we can't get it for the developing countries. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think most people could get behind the general idea that we should at the very least explore internet access as a human right, and it turns out that most of the world already agrees. The United Nations passed internet as a human right way back in 2011, and since then we've been able to increase internet access from 31% in 2011 to 54% as it stands now, which is amazing progress for 7 years, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Before we go on promoting the internet to every phone, computer, and office building in the world, there are probably a few things we should figure out first. After all, our internet is far from perfect. For example, what about misinformation? Nobody really polices the internet, so as a result, there's a bunch of fake news outlets spewing a bunch of fake garbage out there, and for some reason, people keep believing it. How do we deal with that? What about internet trolls? Instead of beating people up in person, bullies will now go online to social media where they can ruin their lives virtually. Is that even something we can stop, or is it just a consequence that comes when you put your entire life on social media? What about hackers? We put so much of our private information online, but the honest truth is most of us have no idea how to protect ourselves. If someone was watching me right now through my phone or this very camera, would I even know about it? I don't know. And lastly, what about net neutrality, which was a big issue vote in the United States recently? Let me paint a crazy picture for you. Let's say a couple of internet providers basically became monopolies and started to run the entire internet. Theoretically, what they could do is give their content great, fast, amazing internet connectivity, and all of their competition would get really laggy, really poor quality content, maybe be invisible or impossible to find altogether. Think about that for a second. That's a really scary thought, to have a couple of companies completely control the entire flow of information. It kind of makes you think about these countries like China or Turkey that will basically shut off social media sites when something's going on that they don't like. That's a really scary thought, and it sounds like a conspiracy, but at the same time, I could totally see that happening. Like I said, in some cases, it already is. So these are just a few of the moral questions that I still have when it comes to regulating the internet. And as much as I think it's important to keep spreading the internet and the power of information to the developing world, we clearly still have a bunch of things that we need to figure out. The internet has the power to completely invigorate an entire generation, just as it has the power to completely destroy it. And quite frankly, sometimes I don't really know which direction we're going in anymore. So what do you think? If you don't really know which side you fall on, maybe you can think about it this way. If we did not have internet access, you would not be watching me right now, and I would not be able to speak to you. That alone should tell you everything you need to know.